In a 70-page court filing, prosecutors say they'll use testimony from collapsed cryptocurrency company FTX's former top executives against founder Sam Bankman-Fried at his trial this October. Bankman-Fried was arrested in December and is accused of leading a scheme to use customer deposits to fund real estate purchases and donations to charities and politicians. He was arrested again last week after a judge revoked bail over allegations he was attempting to intimidate witnesses. Brady Dale joins us now. He is a crypto reporter with Axios. What is in the prosecutor's court filing and what stood out to you?
Well, so this latest court filing that came on Monday has a lot of details about the sort of evidence that they'd like to present, which is, of course, super interesting to all of us who want to know this story. There's some last minute negotiation between the prosecution and the defense about what kinds of things can and can't be presented, and so they want to fight over that. So there's a lot of obvious things here, like business records, communications between executives about what they're doing. There's some recordings of key meetings that happened that prosecutors would like to present. Also, something I thought was interesting is they really want to present FTX's various ads in which they said, we're a trustworthy exchange. In terms of what jumped out to me, there's a bunch of things. I mean, it's 70 pages of evidence, but one thing that really grabbed me is, if folks remember from when around the time FTX collapsed, one of Sam's points of rhetoric that he brought up again and again was there is no reason why FTX US, the US entity, shouldn't be reopened because all the money was there. Well, a part of the story we see in this new filing on the evidence is the prosecutors allege that Sam wired $45 million of customer funds from the international FTX entity to FTX US to close a hole. So I think that helps explain why it wasn't reopened, because there's some questions of whether that was really FTX US money. But it also sort of illuminates some of Sam's thinking as the company fell apart, since we know that it's alleged that he did that.
Manhattan federal prosecutors have dropped a campaign finance charge against Bankman-Fried.
Yeah.
Why do you think they did that?
Well, they had to do it because of this rule of specialty. It's this kind of arcane rule about how extraditions work between nations. But interestingly, they're still bringing that evidence back up. So the superseding indictment that came out this week is just kind of moving that into wire fraud charges and money laundering charges. And so they still think that conduct is relevant. It just doesn't get a separate charge, and so there won't be separate punishment, separate findings over it, but they still think it's relevant to the other existing crimes that are alleged. So that is still part of the story of the trial, even if it doesn't have its own charges anymore.
When you read this filing, it's so long, 70 pages. What do you think of the strength of the prosecutor's case?
It looks pretty good. I mean, $8 billion is missing. Something went wrong, right? I mean, or several billion. We don't really know. We'll find out the final number once the bankruptcy is, fully settled. But it's a lot of money that's gone. It seems like something bad must have happened. And I think the other thing that's really crucial to understand here is, several other executives quickly turned to the state and said, we will cooperate. And so you've got your collaborators in the company saying that they'll help out with the government's case. So that looks very bad for Sam. Now, intriguingly, another thing we find in this filing is that, another executive, not quite as high up as Nishad and Gary and Caroline, but Ryan Salome is apparently still not cooperating, which is kind of surprising to me. And also another person who we've never really heard anything about, that a lot of us who followed FTX closely are waiting on, is Sam Trambuco, who was the co-CEO of Alameda with Caroline Ellison until August, just before this all fell apart. He also hasn't come up in any of this in this case at all, which is somewhat surprising. But still, having three of the people that you basically co-founded what I like to call the Sam conglomerate with, all testifying against you, it just doesn't look good for Sam.
Right. Brady Dale, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.